Good afternoon to all. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this roundtable on addressing the root causes of nutrition insecurity. I am Adrien Abécassis. I'm the Policy Director of the Paris Peace Forum, and I will have the pleasure to moderate this discussion. This is the first discussion on nutrition to be held at the Paris Peace Forum. It won't be the last, as France is preparing to host the next Nutrition for Growth Summit, and will therefore be consulting in the next months, organizing discussion and helping advance the agenda for the summit. I'll try to introduce the discussion by making 4 quick points, and then after give you the floor for a first round of intervention, and then try to have an interactive discussion and react to what each speaker has said. The first point I would like to make is that we know that poor nutrition contributes to nearly half of all child deaths under age 5. We know that there are critical 1,000-day windows from pregnancy to child's second birthday. This is key not only to ensure survival, but to enable growth and cognitive development so individual can thrive. So it's a key factor of lifting countries out of poverty, development, and human capital. Second point is that the harsh reality we are facing, that over 1 billion women and children do not have access to the nutrition and healthy diet they need to survive and thrive today. Of course, poverty exacerbates this, with many children being denied adequate food, let alone the balanced diet that they would need. The third point is that addressing nutritional needs requires a multifaceted or multi-pronged approach. It spans all along the chains, from enhancing food systems for better nutrition to focusing on maternal and child nutrition to all the socio-economic impact to also food fortification. And it ranges from a holistic strategy, one that incorporates all the effects of climate change, socio-economic disparities, conflicts, to more precise action that would leverage the power of research and innovation. We'll probably need all these tools, and they will be all discussed during the year, I guess, in an integrated strategy. And the last point is that despite its crucial importance, nutrition has been somehow overlooked in the global health and development sector, receiving less than 1% of international aid. This is partly due to an underlying and its role in child illness and death that has not been entirely understood until now. This is about to change, as almost 2 years after the Nutrition for Growth Summit in Tokyo, France prepares to host the next summit. And so we'll try during the roundtable to review the current situation and start the conversation about the agenda of this next summit. We have representatives around the table of civil society organizations, governments, international organizations, and the public, who is also welcome to participate. What I suggest is that we start to hear a few of the civil society organizations so they can tell us what are their expectations for the summit. And after that, we'll have the organization and governments, and then we'll take the conversation from here. Perhaps, if you agree, Aisha Koharishi, so you're president of Action Contre la Faim France, I would like to ask you the first question. We know that climate, health, social, economic, humanitarian crises have a direct and deep impact on nutritional security. So you are a humanitarian organization working in the field. Can you tell us a bit more about the approach you take to address this issue, and what are your expectations from the upcoming summit?
Thank you very much, Adrien. Yeah, you're right to point out that conflicts, climate, social and gender inequality are the root causes of undernutrition. And over the last 6 years, the number of people suffering from hunger has drastically increased. And according to the latest reports on the global food crisis, almost 700 million people are suffering from hunger today. And this crisis especially affects girls and women. Their income, their livelihood, their access to food has been affected by conflict, by climate crisis, by poverty, and all the economic shocks that we've witnessed these last years. And there are 150 million more women and girls who suffer from hunger than men and boys today. So at Action Against Hunger, our programs are designed to address the root causes of undernutrition. We are aiming for long-term sustainable solution, which means adopting a multi-sectoral approach and acting in an integrated way to address all the causal and context-specific factors leading to undernutrition. So it's essential, in our view, to implement gender-transformative social protection policies. We promote multi-level response strategies based on the needs expressed by the community themselves, and always linking curative, preventive, and long-term actions on nutrition. So we have more than 40 years experience in this field. And what we can say is that we identify 2 key enablers through social protection measures. First is a universal health coverage for the continuum of care for everyone and without financial barriers, including nutritional care, mental health care, and sexual and reproductive health care based on strong health public services and water and sanitation public process, a basic income for all during the first 1,000 days of a child to recognize the value of unpaid care work of women and reduce this workload. And for the next Nutrition for Growth Summit in France, we are pleading for an ambitious summit that will address the root causes of hunger, especially social and gender inequalities, with concrete commitments on social protection measures, but also conflicts with strong commitments to preserve humanitarian space and the respect of international humanitarian law, and the climate crisis with the agroecology as a common target. And you are pleading to integrate and hear the voices and expertise of local civil societies. And finally, we think that this summit must be concluded with a clear accountability framework, which is often lacking, and concrete commitments on nutrition at local, national, regional, and global level. And we urgently need actions today and outcomes, effective human rights. And today, there is no time to wait for addressing all these root causes of malnutrition.
Thank you very much, Aisha. Perhaps, Marcy, so as a civil society organization, you are positioned at the intersection of individual communities, countries. And you are in the front row to observe how much commitments are being implemented. Can you tell us how has this nutrition landscape evolved in your view, and what is needed now? And please, can you also introduce quickly your organization?
I will do that in the context of how the landscape has evolved. So the Scaling Up Nutrition Movement Secretariat, and I do underline the word movement, came out of the 2007-2008 food crisis, when I think there was really a lot of alarm and a lot of attention to the food and nutrition crisis. And the other piece that drove it was the Lancet report that highlighted, as you just said, Adrienne, the importance of the first 1,000 days. But it's not simply a technical solution. What also came out at that time and in the report was the centrality of having a multi-stakeholder, multi-sectoral approach, as you highlighted, bringing all actors together, and political will, because ultimately nutrition is not a technical issue, it is a matter of political will and pulling people together. So nutrition at that time was top of the global stage. A lot of people committed to it in donor countries and lower and middle income countries. And the Scaling Up Nutrition movement was then founded in 2010, in fact, on the margins of the spring World Bank meetings, and started with 4 countries that wanted to accelerate progress to end malnutrition. Ethiopia, Zambia, Costa Rica, another. We're now 66 countries strong. Panama joined just back in September, so there are 66 sun countries. And what they commit to do is to appoint a government focal point who will lead a multi-stakeholder, multi-sectoral platform, bringing together civil society, bringing together business, bringing together the United Nations, and bringing together donors. And we've seen great success. Most of these countries have national nutrition plans. Half of those plans are costed. Do they have the funding they need to implement the plans? Absolutely not. There is not sufficient funding. I think you pointed to this as well. Nutrition is not particularly well funded. And now the political attention has waned. There are other issues that are higher on the agenda. The advocacy space is quite cluttered. And I think that then turns us to what is it that we can do. And Aisha, I think you pointed to some of those things already. And of course, there's also implications for nutrition for growth. So I think we do need to build again the momentum to put nutrition back at the center, but this is not 2007, it's not 2008. And I think we need precisely to look at nutrition in the context of food systems transformation, nutrition in the context of climate, nutrition and non-communicable diseases, and what are the interlinkages there, because it's not only stunting and wasting and micronutrient deficiencies, but also overweight and obesity that we are seeing increasingly across the globe. The 2021 N4G focused on health, food, resilience, data and accountability, finance. I think we really need to look at what are the building blocks that we can now use and capitalize on as we move to N4G hosted here in France, starting, for example, with the Global Food Security Summit that the UK is hosting next week. Looking at multilateral development bank reform and replenishments and opportunities to integrate nutrition there and have a greater focus on nutrition. Looking at universal health coverage and the possibility of nutrition market there. And ensuring that we are considering all financial policy and operational types of commitments and objectives. Fully agree on the importance of fragile contexts. There are more and more, and about 20 of the 66 sun countries have humanitarian response plans and are at high risk of humanitarian crisis. So we cannot just look at how we do nutrition in a development setting and how we do it in a humanitarian setting. I think we need to look at how do we join those up in a more effective way. As we speak, in Somalia, there's a workshop, a 3-day workshop to operationalize the Food Security and Nutrition Act that was just passed by the government. And the objective there is to ensure that, yes, when there are famine-like conditions, there is a robust response to that, but let's not miss the medium and the longer-term piece as well, and make sure that we're focusing on that. I could go on, but I feel I've been speaking for a long time, and perhaps I pause here, Adrian, and then we come back.
Yes, you're much welcome to come back. I think you made a very important point that nutrition is part of many different agenda. It's a food system agenda, it's a health agenda, it's a climate agenda, development agenda, gender agenda. And I guess one of the questions for the summit, but we'll have time to discuss that later, is should it stay a transversal agenda, or at one point should it be consolidated as one objective per se, and as leverage for all of this, but not only a kind of segment of all of this agenda, but but we'll have time to come back to this. Perhaps Karen Lorena. We've heard that malnutrition disproportionately affects women and girls. You've been working a lot on gender equality. Can you share your experience and observation of the gender transformative approaches in fighting against malnutrition?
So I need the help to Claudia because my English is in progress. So I talk in Spanish, and Claudia share with all in English. Okay.
You can take your time.
Thank you. Bueno, lo primero que quiero plantear es que nosotros en Colombia contamos con diferentes oportunidades. Okay. Sí, sí. Nosotros en Colombia, entonces, listo, perfecto. Entonces, nosotros en Colombia tenemos el Women Economic Forum.
We in Colombia, we have the Women Economic Forum.
Y en este espacio hemos tenido la oportunidad de compartir con diferentes líderes acerca de los de proyectos de alto impacto que trabajan seguridad alimentaria y nutrición.
And we like to share in this event about many leaders about this topic because it's really important about security,
Food security and nutrition.
and nutrition.
Sí. Bueno, entonces, desde ese lugar, nosotros hemos entendido, por ejemplo, que el gobierno nacional tiene la necesidad de hacer primero una entrega de tierras a las mujeres, restituir tierras a las mujeres.
We understand in our country on these events and we chat with those leaders that it's really important to the government have to return the lands for the ladies, for all these women to return the lands to be productive lands.
Un segundo elemento importante es hacer que en lo urbano exista agricultura liderada por mujeres.
The second point that is really important is because we need an agriculture leading by women.
Adicionalmente a ello, hemos entendido que el gobierno y desde diferentes organizaciones apoyan emprendimientos que trabajan por la seguridad alimentaria y por la nutrición.
And also in the third point, we understand that the government must to improve the help and about the startup for women, improving the topics about nutrition and the security for women.
Y aquí quiero hablar de un proyecto en específico.
And also I want to talk about a specific project.
Banca Alimentos. Este es un programa que es desarrollado por una emprendedora social. Banca Alimentos.
Banca Alimentos is a project led by a specific and important women. ¿She's for Colombia?
Sí.
She's a Colombian woman, yeah, leader.
La líder es Olga Bocarejo y ella ha logrado un modelo de desarrollo en tres grandes de triple cuenta.
And she developed the project in three different phases.
Económico, social y ambiental.
Economic, social, and environmental.
Entonces, ella construyó un banco
She built a type of bank
donde las personas pagan con residuos alimentos.
with the people pay with
Food?
waste, yeah. With the people pay with wastes. It's like in a circle of the environment. We pay with the wastes and it's in a circle of the environment.
Y reciben alimentos que están dentro de con una tabla nutricional muy clara.
And they in return receive all the food by defining a clear nutritional list.
Este proyecto ha logrado impactar a más de 15,000 personas en Colombia y ahora está en Brasil y en Italia.
This project have a big impact in more than 15,000 people and already is already in Brazil.
Italia.
In Italia. Sorry, in Italia, sorry. Thinking in the capital of Brazil. Sorry.
Entonces, nosotros lo que hacemos es generar primero un espacio de plataforma para que la conozcan, porque es importante como emprendedora.
So for us, it's really important to give her the platform because it's really important that leaders that her would be known.
Y además de eso, conectarla con oportunidades del mundo.
And also the second most important thing is to connect her for a network for to have more resources.
Este proyecto es uno de los grandes emprendimientos que tenemos en Colombia que reduce brechas de género.
This is one of a big project that we have. One of them that reduce the gender equalities. Yeah.
Garantiza la seguridad alimentaria.
¿Qué otra cosa quieres decir?
Y garantiza la seguridad alimentaria y está muy atenta a la nutrición.
Guarantee the security and nutrition. And, ¿cuál es la última?
Food security.
Food security.
Okay.
Yes.
Es así como nosotros, desde el Women Economic Forum, conocemos grandes casos de éxito y lo que hacemos es conectarlos con el mundo.
That's for the reason that the Women Economic Forum is so really important because we know a lot of projects that really can impact for this topic. So we try to connect them all.
Y el objetivo aquí es servir de inspiración encontrando que hay una gran necesidad del mundo, pero con innovación y con disrupción se puede hacer un cambio en tres, desde la parte social, ambiental y económica.
And also it's really important to know that we want to create some space to that network, to connect other projects, to connect a lot of people with the same needs. We need the need of security, the needs of social, the need of economic, and to help each other.
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Claudia.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That's a brilliant project to tackle two issues with a single, as we say in French, with a single stone. You know. Perhaps, Mr. Guillou, now that we've heard a little bit of the expectation of civil society, can you share with us what we know today about the preparation of the Nutrition for Growth Summit, where France is heading? Well, do we know when it will happen exactly, or is it not yet entirely decided? And what are for now, the objective, and what the process for shaping this objective, integrating the whole community?
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. As for the Nutrition for Growth Summit, traditionally it takes place after the Olympics. Paris will host the next Olympic Games this summer. So probably the summit Nutrition for Growth should take place between the end of 2024 or 2025. I guess nothing has been decided yet. We will have a very, very busy year, this coming year, 2024. So I guess it will take place probably in 2025. We hope, we cross fingers that will take place probably at the beginning of 2025. Where will it take place? We don't know. It could take place in Paris or elsewhere in France. So I have no scoop to announce today. We're working on that. So let me take the opportunity to not only explain how we are preparing that, and we are very much active. We just had a summit on school meals a few days ago here in Paris, in the middle of October. Some of you were participating. We work very closely with civil society, of course, with the major international organization. We're working closely with Scaling Up Nutrition, for example, and others, bilateral partners and civil society. That's on one side. And I'd like to also take this opportunity to explain how do France works on nutrition, on what is our international strategy. We have an international strategy on food, on nutrition, and sustainable agriculture that runs up to 2024. I heard some of the comments that you made, that very interesting. First of all, one of our priorities is nutrition and gender equality for the reasons that you have just raised. We also have something, and we stress on that, nutrition and health, with a specific topic on the first 1,000 days of life, which are crucial for the development of people and, of course, development overall. We also stress the importance of having nutrition and transformation of major agricultural system and the food system also. We're working on a more sustainable and resilient agriculture to climate change. This is one of our key priorities also. We want also to, and we have l'Agence Française de Développement, who will speak in a few moments. We also stress the importance, and we try to promote the best practices on agroecologic agriculture, to have a more sustainable agriculture in different countries. I raised the issue of school meals, who is also a priority for us. And 2 more points: humanitarian crisis. The idea is to have nutrition better anticipated on crisis, which is hard to prepare. And of course, the last point is funding. We need to have more funds on this issue. We have to raise the levels of commitments and also data to have a better view of the needs and the development of nutrition overall worldwide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I know that you'll have to leave a bit before the end of the session. So maybe I can ask you now a follow-up question on your the process for integrating the range of stakeholders that will need to participate. Would there be some kind of consultation with civil society? What about the private sector in this in the organization of the summit? Is it still defined? Is it to be defined? And what?
Currently, we are consulting. We will have to meet with our Japanese counterparts because they hold the last Nutrition for Growth Summit with 156 participants. This is more or less the level that we have. They raised and they mobilized $27 billion. So we're consulting, first of all, with the Japanese to see, and our British friends, and then we will go deeper into the phase of building up this N4G. We will have probably a special envoy dedicated specifically on this that should be appointed within the next months. And of course, we will be consulting, discussing, and comparing notes with all of you here, among others. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Perhaps Agnès, if you want to take the floor, so you'll be another part of the organization of the summit representing the Agence Française de Développement, who already has a lot of ongoing program on this issue. You just told me before the roundtable that you are a nutritionist yourself. Please tell us how you view this summit, the objective from the vantage point of the Agence Française de Développement, and if you want to add something more about nutrition itself and how important it is, or share a bit of your insight as a nutritionist, something that we should know around this table, please also.
Thank you very much. And yes, in the France Agency for Development, so we are associated to this summit as a member of Team France. And investments in nutrition are really at the heart of what we are doing in our focus on investments for the SDGs. So really, we know that nutrition is linked to SDG 1 and 2, but also to 3 on health, to gender, to climate. So it's really one of those agendas that are cross-cutting and have links not only with prosperity and growth, but also with poverty reduction and the question of the adaptation to the environmental crisis, not only climate change, but also biodiversity loss, pollutions, and it was mentioned the role of sustainable agriculture. So this is really at the heart of what we're doing. And of course, as a development bank and financing agency, we're really thinking a lot about the instruments and what we need to fund. And there, I think the way we look at it is, of course, first and foremost, investments in food security in today's world of poly-crisis or perma-crisis in a way. I've heard both, and I think we tend to go towards perma. So investments in food security, clearly in sovereignty of production. But most importantly, when it comes to nutrition, is investments in local production and local crops. And we know controlled by families and women when it comes to the nutrition in the first 1,000 days is one of the key intervention. Second is really the focus on vulnerable populations. So women and children, certainly the first 1,000 days, the importance of going really for prevention, starting with adolescent girls. And we moving more and more into interventions that not only focus on pregnant women and young children, but also on teenagers, and particularly looking at the nutritional status of adolescent girls. So that builds on our traditional commitment on maternal and child health programs with Muskoka, with our contribution to this agenda and the question of equality, the equality agenda between the equality between women and men. And there, I would say what we've learned is probably what I would put as the third area of intervention, which is social protection, which is really the investments in adaptive social protection and addressing the question of economic vulnerabilities, focusing on poor households and regions with economic vulnerabilities, but also linking social protection mechanism, particularly shock response, cash transfers, to accompanying measures and programs that include nutrition measures. And this is increasingly at the heart of what we're doing in the sense of building institutions at country level that can anticipate and respond to shocks. And so that means investments in building registers that include economic vulnerabilities, gender vulnerabilities, and others. That includes building financial instruments, whether transfer instruments, direct cash transfers to households, or intergovernmental transfers, so we can transfer resources to affected or vulnerable areas. But with really more and more making sure that these cash transfers programs are the backbone of programs and are accompanied to maximize the impact with productive programs on competencies and jobs, but also on nutrition activities and increasingly on environment-related activities. And that brings me to the last area of investment, which is really all the investments that are related to this intersection between the environmental crisis and nutrition. So NCDs were mentioned, the global crisis we are living of obesity. At the same level of income, a country like Japan or a country like the US have a completely different levels of obesity. It's 39% in the United States, it's 3.4% in Japan. So it's not about income. The food systems we have today are both driving the climate crisis and driving a spectacular epidemic of obesity, cardiovascular disease, and diabetes, which are going to be the problems of tomorrow and are already contributing to decline in life expectancy. So that the time is to act is today, because many countries are taking the trajectory of the United States, and that will lead to major public health problems, including probably this decline in life expectancy, as well as huge cost to society in terms of life lost, but also impact on the labor market. This is what we've seen in the countries that are affected, and direct impact on the economy. And that, as part of the toolbox of that, I think one of the things that we can do in the financing space is really squarely address the questions of harmful taxes and subsidies. There's been a recent report of the World Bank pinpointing the question not only of fossil fuel subsidies, but agriculture subsidies. History has shown us that agriculture subsidies are an extraordinary tool. They've really helped ensure food security, but they need to be adjusted to the challenges of today. They need to be much more agile in promoting sustainable food systems and addressing this epidemic of obesity. So that's really the 4 areas in which we in the agency are attaching ourselves in supporting projects at country levels and building institutions to respond to this challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Agnès. You made many very important points, and one of them that it's an agenda that we are all concerned by. There is a issue for low and middle income country. Nutrition also has to be on the agenda for high-income country in a different way, I guess. It's not exactly the same parameters, but I guess it will be part of the summit as well. Federico, so you're representing the OECD. Can you speak a bit about the potential of the food system and food economy, especially in Africa, to generate sustainable livelihoods and to boost nutrition?
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias, Karen, también. No, a lot has already been said, so I will not repeat myself, but in the good tradition of being in France, I will make 3 points, and maybe a couple of suggestions or recommendations for the preparation of the Nutrition for Growth Summit. The first point I would like to make is about what we heard from Agnès, which is the importance of focusing on the link between social protection and nutrition. The second point that I would like to make is about the importance of the food economy as a driver for job creation and better livelihoods that has an impact, direct and indirect, on nutrition. And the third point, which could be considered a sub-point of the previous one, is that there are specific interventions that could be made that would harness 2 goals at the same time, which is to improve jobs and livelihoods and nutrition by focusing on specific value chains that target infant food or baby food, as we can say. On the basis of these 3 points, my 2 recommendations will be that in preparing and preparing the summit, adequate attention is paid to these linkages between social protection and nutrition and food systems and the food economy and nutrition. And the second recommendation will be that a very strong gender dimension is placed in this, but with a particular focus on the question of discriminatory social norms and institutions that our analysis shows play a major role in determining gender outcomes. And in many respects, nutrition is an outcome. So addressing your point, should there be a specific focus on nutrition? But nutrition being an outcome, it depends on many different policies and realities. And I think that it's important to underline and address those root causes that, for example, are limiting the opportunities for girls and women to access education, or that expose them to physical violence or unwanted pregnancies, or that limit their capacity to access productive assets. So very quickly on the 3 points that I wanted to make. Social protection, there is more than half of the world, I think ILO says 53% of the world, that currently has no form of social protection whatsoever. And if you look at who is particularly affected by this lack of social protection, is informal economies, informal households. So here you have a double challenge of financing the extension of social protection and extending it to people that are working in an informal sector and informal economy. And I think that not sufficient attention has been placed to this. The ILO has now agreed on a new definition or a better definition of what informal economy means, and I think that more attention should be placed at this. In particular, here there are 2 recommendations that we made, built on a very innovative database that we have created that looks at informality, not only about focusing on individuals, but focusing on the households where the individuals are, because often you have individuals that are in the informal economy that belong to households that are in the formal economy. So you have mixed households. And on the basis of this analysis, we recommend to extend the coverage of social protection to informal workers through non-contributory systems, but at the same time, extending contributory schemes to non-poor informal workers. And we have examples of how this can be done. The second point I wanted to make is about the link between the food economy and nutrition. The food economy is a major source of jobs. We have estimates in Africa, for example, where if you just look at the case of West Africa, the food economy accounts for, I think, 60% of job creation, if properly measured. But unfortunately, there remain barriers to these economies, this food economy, to realize its potential. And one has to face the reality that a lot of these are smallholder farmers. And as much as one could like to have, formalized enterprises and large firms, this is not something that is going to happen overnight. So I think that while the goal should be to promote formalization and increasing the size of enterprises, on the other hand, one has to face the reality that a lot of the current food system actors are small-ordered and often informal workers. And so you need to devise specific patient capital approaches to work with those. And I think that here, by focusing on the food economy, you will generate more income and more jobs and more income, and this will in the end benefit nutrition. This leads me to my third and last point, which is within the food economy, there are also opportunities to develop specific sectors related to the production of food for infants and for baby. And the ITC, with the support of the European Union, recently did a study, Made in Africa, if the title, Leonard will tell more about that, I suppose, where there are some staggering numbers where, for example, Africa as a whole imports infant food preparation for about $500 million, and this will go more than 1 billion by 2026. And these needs could be actually covered by local production if there were adequate facilities, capacities, and infrastructure in place. So this was my last third point, that as part of this focus on the food economy, there could be a specific element on how to develop regional value chains in Africa, but also in other regions of the world, to produce this kind of baby food. So if you listen carefully to the 3 points, now I can make my 2 final recommendations. And of the 3, of the 2 recommendations, I will actually focus on one, which is the gender one. We have been observing through a tool that we have at the OECD that is called Social Institution and Gender Index. We were able to measure the impact of discriminatory social norms and institutions. And unfortunately, the latest numbers that we have, that we just released in July, show that the situation has worsened between the previous edition and the current edition. And if you think about how big this is, well, 40% of women and girls globally live in countries where discrimination is either high or very high. And this may seem, bad in itself, but it can be addressed. And there are actually good examples of how to address it. One of which is masculinities and how you work about the respective roles of boys and girls and how you can nudge, or with behavioral, but not only behavioral, sciences, promote a more positive impact of these masculinities with respect, for example, to unwanted early pregnancies, but also to how in the house between baby boys and baby girls receive sufficient attention. You may have heard of this study, I think here in France, about the amount of money, the pocket money that parents give to children. There is a bias about giving more pocket money to baby boy than to boys than girls. Not yet at babies, but to boys than girls. So these are our three points and 2 recommendations, and happy to continue the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Leonard Mizy, so you're representing the European Commission. The Commission, of course, is a big donor and a big political player in the promotion of the nutrition security agenda, and you also have a major role in coordinating a response among the member states to tackle the root causes of food insecurity and nutrition insecurity. So can you tell us from your point of view, is nutrition a priority area that member states are focusing on right now? What is the general priority? What needs to be done? And how do you see the coordination ahead of the next Nutrition for Growth Summit?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. And it's a pleasure that at the Paris Peace Forum, nutrition is, I would say, high on the agenda, because I just use some terminology which I heard over the past 30 minutes. Overlooked, yes, it is overlooked. We can say, as typical bureaucrats, for us it's a priority, but it's overlooked. I can give you figures because no one mentions figures. I think important for the M4G we mention figures because this is key. The European Union mobilized 3.5 billion 24-2020, and we are in the phase of 21-24 of 2.5 billion, which we pledged in Tokyo. What will happen in 25 onwards, we don't know. We hope that member states give us a clear signal to put nutrition at the core. Is there appetite for nutrition these days? Not much. Let's be clear. There are so many priorities. Marcy mentioned 2008, for those who were like me in the midst of the food crisis of 2008 and L'Aquila. The situation today is much more problematic. We have 2 wars on our doorsteps. We have a geopolitical tension of mega heights, which is not looking good for 2023-2024. And the financial situation is not looking good either for many countries. So there is a financial crunch, and Federico mentioned it. We can't come up with a summit if we don't look at the financial mechanisms and the financing. Financing is key. And we can give billions, but this requires mega billions. Okay? So, and who has mega billions? I leave you to understand that there are no mega billions out there, because we go to summits and conferences, and we go soon to COP, and you'll hear about mega billions for climate. Yes, climate and nutrition, you will hear more. But the devil is in the detail, and that is what the European Union, and thanks to Christophe for giving us some framing, we still need a lot of details, although this will be in early 2025, possibly. We need to start working now. We are a bit, I wouldn't say late, but this is, unlike many other topics which you hear every day, this is a very complicated topic because it's cross-cutting, it's intersecting, and when you have intersections, you risk falling into the cracks because it's not sort of focused as one would like. So many of you mentioned gender, youth, financial instruments, climate. Like, this is not like a sector like hydrogen, which is pretty much clear, or critical raw materials if you have lithium. This is cross-cutting, complicated and very specific to the likes of the Sahel. I don't need to tell you what's happening, Horn of Africa, the Colombias and the Guatemalas, and the Asia Pacific, pretty specific. So what Aisha mentioned, this is what the European Union wants to do. So I heard Team France, we want Team Europe. So that is, you have all our support, and for G Secretariat, and I look forward to engage with the Special Envoy. The quickest you nominate the Special Envoy, he or she can come to Brussels and I can mobilize Team Europe with immediate effect. And that is for me a commitment, not only to show accountability, because for me it's not pledges, it is accountability. Within a year's time, I come up with an annual report, which we do, last one was 21-22, on how our pledge is being committed at the level of detail, because we can't go on doing commitments and then not being accountable. So accountability is key. Drilling deep into the specifics, because it's not just speaking about food production, but food production for what? I can tell you food production can be a myriad of food production, but what? You do rice, you do livestock, you do aquaculture, you do fresh fruit and vegetables, you do a mix. But again, a mix of what? So diverse diets, I didn't hear much. The need for more plant-based, clearly not bashing animal proteins, fish protein, and we want, which I didn't hear much, we want also to invest in ag research for development, also for our UTF, which is ready therapeutic foods, ready-to-use therapeutic foods, and ready-to-use supplementary foods. And we support multi-stakeholder. Multi-stakeholder processes are key, but they are relatively underfunded. So scaling up nutrition with 66 networks. No one mentioned the CFS, which is the Committee on World Food Security. This is for us very important. The European Union funds it especially. Christophe mentioned agroecology. Yes, agroecology is for us at the core, as much as school feeding, which we participated in, and this is a pillar. Is it sufficient? No, it's necessary, but there are other components of which school feeding is a component. School feeding is important if you have what we call continuity of funding in a smart way. On its own, school feeding will not do miracles. So we have nutrition platforms, nutrition information, data systems are key, and we have this NIP in a number of countries, Ethiopia, Guatemala, Uganda, just to name a few, Cote d'Ivoire, Laos, and Kenya, and we want to do more on NIPINs. Gender transformative approaches, the work that GAIN is doing on what is known as the Initiative on Climate Action and Nutrition, a smart way of integrating nutrition to climate. The work that the FAO has done on true cost of food. This is the report that was unveiled a few days ago. So I think my message is a simple one, all hands on deck. Let's start working from yesterday, not from tomorrow. Let us bring all the minds together. So for those who were in Micronutrient Forum in The Hague, we were there, and there is, I would say, loads of academia and research. Do we need to reinvent the wheel? No, we know what the solutions are. We clearly need funding. We need more AFDs and EFADs, because de-risking agriculture value chains is tough work. It's not easy. Appetite remains relatively limited, especially on small ticket sizes. So we have blending operations, but we need more finance to target also gender transformative approaches in a smart, targeted way on smallish ticket sizes. And I think what is key is that we need also to work smartly in an African continent around intra-regional trade. Federico mentioned the work that we are doing with ITC, so on complementary foods, but we can't just work a bit in Chad, or where we were working also in Niger. we need to integrate the African market. We can't continue saying Africa has potential. Yes, Africa has potential if you unleash it. But there are lots of conditions to unleash that potential. So food safety, critical. Cold storage, critical. Infrastructure, the work that we are trying to do under the Global Gateway, and clearly putting at the core intra-regional markets, because if a true African continent has to be an engine of growth, we have to have intra-regional trade of 40, 50, 60%, and not a measly 15% or 10% like we have it today. So this is, I think, important. Intra-regional, like Federico mentioned, the trade dynamics of regional value chains, and whenever the Special Envoy and France is ready to give the starting shot, we are there to support and show leadership, and we have good opportunities. G7, Italy, starting in the coming weeks. G20, Brazil, we hear also that the issue of an alliance around hunger and poverty is. So let's use this momentum, but also showing, for me, one word, accountability and results on the ground.
Thank you very much, Leonard. I think you've made very strong points on several issues on financing, on trade, on data, and on agri-innovation that are needed to complement the other approaches as well. We have a few minutes to open the discussion if anyone wants to react in the room on what has been said. Also, we have other stakeholders. Please don't hesitate if you want to add a point. Yes, please. Can you introduce yourself quickly?
Hello, my name is Cécile Keval. I'm working for Action Against Hunger at the EU Advocacy. So I have a question on the last presentation of Mr. Mizzi. Thank you. First, for your engagement. I think it's very important. We know that the EU has a critical role to play. You mentioned that we need to act now. We know that also there will be European election next year, and we will redefine a bit the leadership of the EU in the Parliament, but also in the Commission. But we need to anticipate as well. At the EU level, there is this action plan on nutrition, which will end in 2024. So how do you see the renewal of this action plan? We need the member state engagement, but also the European Commission. So are you already working on this renewal of the action plan, or do you see this after with the new European Commission? But as you mentioned, I think the action needs to be started now. So how you anticipate that? Thank you.
I have this question every time, okay?
Please, of course.
So
I think it was directed to you, so
no, but I have it, so it's in my line to take. Are we preparing a new action plan? No. Why are we not preparing a new action plan? Because we need to get a clear signal, and I think this is a bit of an outgoing college. I would say we are doing the maximum to give a clear signal to the new college. As you know, we are end of college. There are a number of emergencies out there. So this college is in the stage of consolidating, okay? So new European Parliament, I didn't mention the EU Green Deal. You see a softening of the EU Green Deal as well. So things are a bit on the election mode, and no new initiatives are actually coming up in the next few months as we head to the June 2024 elections. But clearly, signals from civil society, from the new European Parliament, and from the new college, as a service, I'm ready to prepare any updated action plan if necessary, but this requires what I call an interinstitutional buy-in. Today, member states are somewhat fragmented in terms of positioning on this file. If there is a consolidation, it can't be, again, overlooked. This is not a marginal operation, but it has to be on the front line of politicians and political leaders. So continue doing your job, but probably you need to do a recharge job with the new parliament, and then we'll do it and align it with the new college But we have the building blocks. We know what needs to be done.
Thank you. Are there another intervention? Yes, Marcy.
Thanks. If I can take the liberty of coming back in, just picking up on this point of why nutrition is overlooked when we know that it is so foundational to the SDGs, not only the ones that Agnes mentioned, but really all of the SDGs. And without well-nourished people, you don't get economic growth and development and prosperity, at a global, at a national, at a community level. So I think it is worth giving a bit of thought as to why that is. Why does it continue to be overlooked? And I'm not giving you an answer, and I'm sure people do have views, but I think there is an element of not having a constituency. It's not like HIV/AIDS activists who are going out and protesting and demanding action. We're talking about malnourished children in many parts of the world who are not there speaking up and speaking out. So I think that is one element. Second, I think we talk about food security, food security, food security. And in the midst of the food crisis, what we were always saying is, please always say food and nutrition security. They go hand in hand because having sufficient calories does not ensure a healthy diet. But we still continue to have to beat that drum. And then I don't know if there is an element of nutrition often being somewhat technical. Talking about how many standard deviations when you want to measure levels of wasting and so forth. If there's something we need more to really put it in a place where there is more public support for that. So I think that is an important thing to consider also as we move towards N4G. And I know that Christophe had to leave, but... Christophe, you're listening. Of course you are, Nicolas. Yes, of course you are. Really looking at that life cycle approach of ensuring that we are looking at the first 1,000 days and school meals as part of early childhood development, and then that adolescence. So not segmenting this further, but looking at as that life cycle approach. Looking at women, and everyone has raised women and youth, but not only as caregivers. I'm glad you mentioned the gender transformation, the gender transformational approach, but really looking at women as having agency and decision makers and leaders in their community, because we can tend to look at them as caregivers, and I think that is far too limited. And then finally to say, there are many events coming up. I think a number of us mentioned those, and one of those is the Sun Global Gathering, which will take place in Kigali in June 24th to 27th. So I think that we do see this as one of the milestones en route to N4G, but there is, and I won't go through it now, a whole array of events where I think there are opportunities to speak with one voice, to join up advocacy across civil society, donors, governments that are not donors, the Sun countries, and others to move towards that. And then finally, ICANN, the Initiative in Climate and Nutrition that we are part of with GAIN and FAO and WHO, really looking at two big, not intractable, but challenging problems that we will more effectively address if we look at them together and look at win-win situations. So I think we need to be doing more of that and then really amplifying what those solutions are.
Thank you very much. I think we are over time, so I will conclude quickly. And it was a fascinating discussion, I think, with a lot of point of view. So as a French, I'll try to make 3 points in conclusion. As Federico, who's lived for 20 years in France, said that, I'll make 4 points. One is, in what we've heard, of course, nutrition is cross-cutting. And we need a holistic approach, which is of extreme importance. We also hear that there are some risks of this approach, which is, has been said, that as it intersects into everything, there is a risk that it falls into the crack. And there's a risk that taking an approach where we have to solve development, equality, gender, climate, before solving nutrition. So maybe this has to be complemented by also more targeted actions. And we've heard things that calories are not always nutritious, that within the food economy there are some points where we can leverage and agree innovation and all that. So I think the conciliation of this agenda and the whole range and how we get will be, I believe, a big part of the discussion. And the third point, of course, is financing, without which nothing could happen. And on this, I get the as you say, there are a lot of agenda that requires financing, and so the discussion will have to be advocated forcefully. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this discussion, and I hope to see you soon again in the Paris Peace Forum events.